When two young people fall in love and get married, they're supposed to then just be starting their lives and feel hopeful about the future. But for this young woman, her joy was quickly replaced with fear when the love of her life fell into a coma after a tragic accident. The man she was supposed to be starting her life with was at risk of being at the end of his life, and the decision was in her hands: to pull the plug or fight for him. This was the dreadful decision the newlywed had to make, but she chose to fight for a whole 3 years until a miracle happened. It all started on a warm, sunny day in July of 2011. Matt went for a motorcycle ride, as he often did, while Danielle Davis waited for him to return like she would on any other day. Except that day wouldn't be like any others. In fact, it was to be the worst day of both their lives. When Danielle picked up the phone, the last thing she expected to hear was a doctor telling her that the love of her life had just been in a tragic motorcycle accident and was in the emergency room. Matt was merging onto an interstate when he hit an illegally parked car. The speed of the impact sent his motorcycle flying at a high velocity. The injuries he suffered were severe. Not only did he have multiple broken bones, but he also had lacerated organs and suffered heavy trauma in his brain. Danielle went to go find her husband lying in the hospital bed, completely incapacitated and unconscious. The doctors broke the news to her that there was nothing they could do on their end to help Matt recover. His diagnosis wasn't promising, considering his long list of injuries, including fractures of the femur, multiple jaw fractures, a fractured rib, lacerated liver, fractured collarbone, skull fracture, a brain injury, and he was in a coma. The health officials told her that Matt had a 10% chance to pull through and regain consciousness and only a 5% chance to fully recover. His life was in her hands. She now had faced the hardest choice anyone could make: pull the plug or keep fighting. The doctors recommended Danielle remove Matt from life support because there was a 90% chance he would never wake up. Danielle felt conflicted. She explains in her blog, "This was a difficult choice for me. Being his wife, I knew that he did not want to remain a vegetable, and here the doctors were telling me that's exactly what will happen. They said if it was them, they would pull the plug. That's what they'd want their family to do." Despite the low odds, any chance of recovery was enough for Danielle to hold on. She refused to give up and chose to lay beside him and pray for him for as long as it would take. "I knew that God could get us through that," she said. "I didn't think it was too big for God." They eventually moved Matt from the hospital to Danielle's mother's home in North Carolina. They set them up with resources so they could care for Matt as long as they could. Matt remained in a coma for 3 years. He was on life support while in a medically induced coma. Danielle spent days, then weeks, then years sitting by his bedside praying for a miracle. Then after 3 years, Matt miraculously woke up one day and uttered 2 words to his faithful wife that she'll never forget. "I'm trying," he said. This was all the hope she needed and had held on to this point. Matt's eyes were now open and following Danielle's movements around the room. The moment Matt opened his eyes was a turning point in all of their lives. Matt started to get feeling in his arms and legs and was able to slightly move them around, except his awakening was bittersweet. He has struggled to regain his long-term memory and was missing all memories of Danielle from before the crash. She looked like a stranger to him and had to reintroduce herself to him as his wife. "I realized he doesn't remember me. He's not going to remember me. Those things are gone," Danielle explains. But the young couple saw this opportunity as a new beginning and would learn to love each other all over again. They started a GoFundMe page to support Matt's intense therapy sessions, while insurance covered the cost of rehabilitation. In fact, in April 2014, Matt took his very first steps again. Matt and Danielle had proven that faith, love, and perseverance were enough to defy all odds. Matt held on to those same values as he started his recovery journey and continued to beat the odds in what doctors could only describe as unprecedented progress. The amount of progress he made wasn't even thought of as possible. The young couple had another chance at love, family, and a future together. Eventually, Matt was even able to get off his medications. Every day, he was getting closer and closer to a normal life. Despite sacrificing his long-term memories, he was already making beautiful new ones, and that's all that mattered. If there's one thing Matt held on to in his recovery process, it was Danielle. Even if for a time he had no idea who she was, he told ABC News, "I'm sure glad I married her." Since then, Matt and Danielle continue to inspire the world with updates of their story and their now seemingly normal second shot at life. A couple of years ago, she shared, "It's been 3.5 years since Matt's accident and he continues to improve. He is not on any medications. He walks with forearm crutches for minimal distance and supervision. Insurance will no longer pay for therapy. People with traumatic brain injury need a lot of rehab. People continue to make improvements even 10 years after their injury. Insurance doesn't pay for the amount of therapy they need, so oftentimes that person doesn't reach their full potential. It has only gone up from there." Matt felt like he owed his life to his wife. Even if he couldn't remember their first date, her devotion, dedication, and faith in him and their love spoke for themselves. The couple showed that true love and faith can move mountains. Matt explains, "He put her in my life, so God knows what he's doing." Even the most selfless and kindest acts of love don't always meet a happy ending. While Matt continues to recover, the couple had suffered a lot of pain and it wasn't possible to come back for it, and that's okay. Danielle explains, "The truth is, I had been planning to make a way for Matt and I to separate, for him to be independent, for me to have peace, to find out what it's like to be a person, to find myself, and for him to have a life he didn't constantly feel like he couldn't live up to." That's the reality of these situations. They now live without regrets. The important part is that they're both alive and well thanks to each other. Sometimes people come in and out of your life for a reason, and they're not meant to last. This doesn't change the power of the love they once shared or the magnitude of their story.